What's up, y'all? I'm K.C.
And I'm Tyler.
And you're listening to
The Element Podcast. What's going on, y'all? We are sitting in my house again, man. It's a awesome place to sit on this couch in the quiet during the day. I do a lot of editing. Basically, it's like the bat cave, especially if I don't open the blinds. But it's pretty good. Been pretty good mornings, man, weather-wise lately. But it's supposed to kind of warm up, and I think that's kind of a regional thing, at least, maybe a U.S. thing, but definitely around here. And KC and I have been kind of just getting after it. After getting to South Dakota, we did a little public land hunting in Texas, may do a little more before we head out to other places to hunt. But, you know, for now, we're doing a bunch of editing and getting out podcasts to you guys, finally, after having voices. Mm-hmm. We did a Q&A recently, and I think we're going to do another one because we didn't get to finish up. We had a ton of questions actually still. And we're actually, don't be disappointed if a Q&A is not your favorite thing, because we're going to actually, we've got a lot of content coming in the next couple weeks with the rut leading up here. We've got some stuff, some interviews from guys like Jared Mills and Mike Hunsucker talking about different rut tactics. Jared Scheffler, we have a lot of people ask about him. He's already done an interview with us as well. We're going to talk about that going into the rut. And then you and I are going to have probably some rut stuff we're going to talk about as well. Maybe, you know, hopefully some of this stuff just leads you guys into that one tactic you needed to break through and kill a giant buck. It's the best time of year, man. I mean, as soon as the weather starts to chill back out for us, we are going to probably have neck swelling, and probably there's a good chance I make a scrape up here on the hill somewhere.
You know what's cool is that those late October cold fronts are really nice, but when there's not one in the weather forecast, you know what that means?
Early November cold
front. Because it's coming. It's going to happen, right? Like that's not how weather works. You don't just get a consistent chilling trend where it drops 2 degrees every day. Like there's going to be a cold front.
Yeah.
And if it's on November 4th, rage.
Dude, when it was early November 2 years ago front, and it was 1 degree in Kansas, that was
my goodness. You know, that actually wasn't that great of a hunting day from what I remember. I mean, it was Kansas in early November, but
I had I'm pretty sure, well, I don't know. One of those days when it was like single digit, I did have 2 bucks fighting like crazy.
Yeah, you
remember
did.
That?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was that day or not.
I think that, like, what I imagine in my mind on those days is just like a train of bucks coming by every 15 minutes, and we didn't get that. But
I'm down for like a cold front that goes into the 20s or 30s.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
If it's being like lows in the 50s and it goes down like a low at 27 and, you know, the day gets to 45, like that's my day. 45 it's where I like to be, man.
Yeah, 45.
I like 45 a lot.
I like 53.
I can put on, 2 layers on bottom, 3 layers on top, and just hunt. I like that a lot.
I like 55 or maybe a little below, because you can still hang your meat, especially if it's out of the sun, and then I also don't freeze my tiny tail off in the tree stand, or tree saddle, whichever. Yeah. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff coming through that's going to be different. Hopefully, this stuff helps you right around the rut, because. And that was our plan, is to produce a lot of stuff for the rut to be helpful. But for now, we've got several more Q&A type things.
If we got this many questions, that means that dudes are into the Q&A.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and whenever we're doing this stuff, we don't try to speak from expertise. We try to speak from experience. So don't ever think that we are experts at stuff, because we try to not be. We try to always be doing something new, something we can learn about, and there's always more to learn. But we have done a decent amount of stuff. So if we can tell you, from that point of view, I think that we will all learn something together.
Dude, even from, I've said this before, but even from guys that haven't hunted long, there are things to be learned. You know, like a guy may have a different perspective or whatever, but there's always something to be learned. So just having a community that we can all share and listen from, and speaking of that, we have an Element DIY Facebook group that you guys can request to be added to. And it's just a place where you can ask questions. KC and I are on there. We answer some questions whenever we can, which is every time we get one, we try to answer it. But there are other guys that are probably way better hunters than us in that group that
honestly,
can answer.
Instead of, don't get me wrong, we love DMs and stuff when people ask us questions and we try to answer them when we can. If we're on a hunting trip, it's kind of hard. But, if you have a question for us or anybody, you might just post it on that group as opposed to sending us a message because you'll get a plethora of answers and maybe have more resources to pull from.
Yeah.
So check that out. But by all means, when we do these Q&A stuff, send us questions for that too because it's fun.
Yeah. Another thing y'all can do that would help us tremendously is to buy merch. I know we say this every time, but right now we
if you
need
don't
some
know what
gas
that is,
money.
that's merchandise. Meaning T-shirts, hoodies, and all that. People are getting a little confused with some of our lingo. I've got some LDGG messages recently. What's that mean? And sorry, guys.
Wish you knew.
Yep. Wish you knew, man. It'd be more fun if you did.
Well, if you figured out what LDGG means, #LDGG, send us a message, and if you figure that out, we'll let you know. If you don't have the right terminology when you message us, we're not telling you what it is. But we'll let you know if you do it right. So, like I said, you can go to our website and buy shirts and stuff like that. That helps us out a lot. We need gas money. But outside of that, we'll stop hammering you after.
We got a bunch more hoodies, and they're a good color, and they are super soft on the inside.
They are.
Yeah,
I love them. I wore mine yesterday, and it smelled, and I was like, I don't care. I like this thing. So I'm about to go wash it here in a minute. Let's see. So we will start with. Oh, by the way, thank y'all so much for the support on the Kansas buck that released a week ago. That thing got over 10,000 views a day in the first week. So that's pretty awesome. Thank y'all for sharing the message and spreading the word of the element and trying to help us out there and watching as well. It means a lot to us. We got more South Dakota stuff coming soon. I'm actually releasing. We will release on Wednesday and then probably Sunday this week. So be looking for that. Anyway, go to the questions now. KC, are saddles worth the learning curve?
I'm assuming the kind that you sit in, right? Not the ones that you see.
I think this is the one you ride a horse with.
Okay. So if you're talking about the saddle you hunt out of and not the terrain feature, I would say absolutely.
Me too.
I don't think there is that much of a learning curve. If you're used to being in a tree stand, if you're used to hunting from the ground and you go to a saddle, it might be a little bit of a learning curve. And Eric has actually a lot of good perspective on this. We might revisit this some with him later.
Yeah.
For me, it was like, okay, I just need to learn to, instead of setting my tree stand up on the side I expect the deer to come from, set it up kind of opposite or catty corner to it, and you're there.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think so. I think for me, the first couple of times sitting in it, I had to get used to, where to put my stuff. But all it is, guys, the saddle is just kind of like a harness that goes around your butt, right? And then you've got a rope that's a tether that people call a tether that goes to the tree. And then you've got a lineman's belt that you go up the tree with, just like you do with a saddle or with a harness. And so there's really, you're still got pretty much the same type of stuff that you have with a harness that you use in a tree stand. You just, figure out the comfort by either moving your tether up and down the tree in front of your face or loosening your belt a little bit or whatever. But I can tell you right now, the cruisers that we've been running, I haven't even adjusted it hardly at all as far as it should go on this notch on my hip or whatever. They're just comfortable. So I don't have to worry about with the cruiser. In some was the one we hunted with last year a little bit, did fine. They were absolutely, a gift and we loved them. But I had to adjust them sometimes and I just haven't had to do that with these. So super nice. If you have the cruiser, you're going to find comfort somewhere pretty easy. One
thing that's hard to swallow about jumping into a saddle is it's a lot of money for something that's not metal. And when I say a lot of money, that's relative, right? But that was something I had to kind of get over somewhat, was that, I understand, it's easier for me to understand paying money for a big metal thing because it's hard and big, whereas a saddle is a lot smaller and lighter weight, and it's cloth, but it still costs a decent amount. Well, part of that's liabilities, and part of it's just with a cruiser, especially like good workmanship and craftsmanship on this thing.
Yeah.
And you have to think of it more of, would you rather spend $200 to make sure your life is not in jeopardy, or $600 to make sure your life is not in jeopardy?
Yeah.
I'm gonna err towards the more expensive side of that,
Yeah.
because I want something that's really well built, made in America, right? So, like literally sewn here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the cruiser stuff is. And once you realize that and realize how mobile it is, it takes the place of 15 tree stands. It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite tree species to climb during archery season, and why?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is a good question, man.
I like this. Do you have yours right off the bat, or do you? Because I might need to think.
I'll let you think. My favorite tree species to climb during archery season. Well, this is a trick question because when I'm sitting in a cottonwood, I feel like I'm in big deer country, but that's not necessarily the case. I would say a lot of times I find myself, if I'm talking about easy, an ash tree is a good easy hang. A lot of times they tend to have like split trunks about 8 or 9 foot up a lot of times, so you can get hidden within those trunks without having to get too high, and you can still get shots out of them pretty easy. But as far as like cover goes, early before they drop leaves, hackberries, but getting shots out of them are difficult. So
because they're real woolly.
Yeah, but I mean, if I can find the right, oak trees can sometimes be too big, and they're, for me, like when I'm not in East Texas, I don't hang in many oak trees. So I would say probably an ash tree is just a good starting spot for me to say that's one of my favorites because I can get up them really quick and easy. They're usually good, decent sized for me to get ropes around, and they are easy to get shots out of on public.
I have some counterpoints to your ash tree, but we're not here to debate it. I'm just going to go a different direction. I like the hackberry thing, but because I went through the gamut of all this stuff in my mind, right? What you're talking about. I like ash trees, but a lot of times cover is a little tough to get in, and they're a little wiggly. I think that an elm tree oftentimes lends itself to kind of the best of all this stuff.
Yep.
Where it's one thing I've noticed too is that trees with a finer grain bark, your sticks bite better into. So like pine trees or big oak trees or big cottonwoods, sometimes it's hard to get your sticks hard on there. Hackberries usually have finer grain, right?
They got them little warts all over them.
They do sometimes have the warts all over.
That can make it pretty
when they're
difficult.
small. Yeah. So elms have a finer bark, somewhat soft, so you can get a good bite into it. A lot of times elm trees also have branches at the right length to where like you might only need one stick to get up the tree because you're stepping and climbing and grabbing sticks all the way up. And then they're usually pretty straight and they have decent cover in early season. So I'm going to say elm tree is probably my favorite as far as ease of climbing.
That's a good one. I like elms a lot too, but basically with elm, hackberry, and ash, those leaves come off pretty early. So that's the one thing you have to keep in mind. But really, go ahead.
There's a crunch fest underneath a hackberry tree.
Oh,
those leaves get real dry.
Yeah. Talk about, you need some wind cover when you go to set one of those.
But if a deer comes through, you hear that sucker.
Yeah. No, it's fun. I mean, the best tree to hang in archery season is the one that is close enough to the trail to get a shot that you want to get a shot at.
Killing tree.
I mean, it doesn't matter what it is. Just you got to find a way to get into the tree and get shots out of it.
And that's what saddles help you do too.
That's right.
P.S.
That's right. What time of season do you prefer not calling and staying silent?
I would say early season. I've grunted at some deer recently that didn't really care. And I think that as things go into later season, that means more as far as vocalizations goes. I don't know how I feel about grunts in like late December, but pretty much from October 15th to about December 10th, I feel pretty good about grunting at something.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Or definitely early season. I'd feel way better about throwing a grunt out in the late season probably than early season. But at the same time, you grunted a deer on October 4th last year.
Yeah.
Me and Hunter grunted 2 bucks in on the 7th or something this year. They were close, but they came right in.
Yeah, South Dakota's different though too. It's just the plain stuff's a little bit different.
Less pressure.
I think that one thing that I've noticed about like the deer, at least I grunted in early season last year, he was cautious when he came in. He was very inquisitive, like what's going on over? He didn't come over like, oh, where's this deer at? Like let's do this thing. He was cautious about it. So
yeah, well, it was wide open. He knew.
He knew.
He was like, "Where's this deer exactly?"
Yeah,
so it may have been something to it. Are grunts more effective than rattling?
Depends on what you're going for. I think that
for pigs usually, but I have rattled in a pig too. So
yeah, I have never. That's not true, man. I don't know. What do you think?
I like to grunt before I rattle. If I can see the deer. If I'm blind, a lot of times I'll just skip the grunt because I'm like,
I don't blind grunt a whole lot.
I don't either. But yeah, I usually am grunting first and seeing the reaction from there. Unless it's really far away and I don't think he can hear me.
I'm thinking about 20. Was it 2019?
They can hear further than you think. Though,
oh yeah,
grunts.
What the buck I missed on the ground because my arrow hit grass in Kansas. We rattled off the bat for him, but he was like 350 yards away.
He's way out.
So you know that like that's the only way he's going to hear you if you crack them antlers.
Dude, how scared were you when he just turned and came right at us?
Oh man, it was wild, right?
Yeah.
But in last year, I grunted in a deer at like 180 yards.
Yeah.
So like they're into it. I think that I would go with you as far as like unseen rattling is a thing you can do. Sight, like if you have line of sight to a deer, read their demeanor and decide what you should do.
Yeah.
I also think that grunting at deer is a good way to get a big buck to come to you. I think that when you rattle, you're liable to have a spiky come in.
Yeah.
And I did that last year. On the ground, I thought I was going to rattle in a big buck because I had seen him and I made a stalk and rattled, and then here comes this dinker. It came to 2 yards away.
You also rattled in 2 deer from 2 different directions last year on public in Texas, and almost the little ones messed up your big 6 kill. So
that's right.
One thing about rattling is you also got to think about the time of year. If you're going to rattle hard because he's way out there, I mean, you can do this at any time and take your chances. But if it's like mid-December, deer are just not really fighting full out. So like. Using lighter rattling and stuff might be good. Do you prefer real or fake antlers?
Real.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure.
Now, I do like the fact that you can carry a rattle bag in your little pouch.
Yeah, that's what I've been carrying a lot because rattling horns are hard to carry.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't, like, at least mine, I mean, I can't even bungee them on there and know that they're going to be there when I get to my stand. I mean, they fall off easy and they don't pack very well. So that's the one setback for that. What's your blaze orange setup for federal land? Does it change from early to late season?
Well, I have an orange toboggan I keep around too. That's like a beanie if you're not from the South. That I keep around, but pretty much an orange hat and orange vest just stays in my pack. And I talk to your local game wardens because some of them are different on this stuff. If the book says have on orange, you should have on orange. Some game wardens will tell you once you get in your tree, you can like take that off of your body and put it in the tree or something like that. That's kind of what I usually do. Yeah.
Early season, a lot of times don't need it. It just depends, I guess, on squirrel season and whatever else is going on. But you just got to read your regs. Most times 400 square inches. Front and back, and then head orange.
Something on your
covers you.
Yeah. So I go with the lightest weight thing I can do, but not the plastic ones. Yeah. You can go look like at Lowe's at the safety vests, and a lot of times you can find a mesh one that's real lightweight. I like those a lot.
Somebody wants to know when we're coming out with fishing shirts or merino long sleeves with our logo on them.
I got a request for that last night.
Did you
as
really?
well? Yeah.
A merino or a fishing shirt?
Just a long sleeve with element long sleeve.
Yeah.
So
merino would be pretty slick for sure, but probably be real expensive.
Yeah.
Go through your early, mid, and late season apparel setups. This was particularly asking about Sitka, but we wear all kinds of stuff.
Well, we do have a Sitka video, or Sick of Heavy video.
Yeah,
About
still
that
apparel.
stuff. Yes, but we mixed in a
Bass
bunch
Pro.
of different stuff in there on that. It's on YouTube. I think it's Complete Camo Setup is what it might be called
Yeah,
or something like that. But pretty much, we were talking about this the other day.
Overview, here.
Yeah, I always try to have one more piece of warm stuff than what I think I actually will need in my bag. So most of the time throughout the year, I'm carrying everything except my base layer is on my body. Or I'm sorry, my base layer is on my body and everything else is in my pack. And right now, that is, I will have a midweight hoodie and a jacket in my pack. And that's going to get me to, down to 35 in the tree stand pretty easily. What about you?
Early season, I'm usually wearing some kind of synthetic upper that dries out or like quick, which I have a Sika short sleeve that I wear a lot that they sent me, and so I just wear that a lot. Sometimes I'll wear a t-shirt if it's not too hot, and then basically I run a little bit colder than K.C., so I usually just kind of know what I'm running or like how I'm going to feel and what temperature is, and just try to make sure I have plenty of stuff. Like pretty much just work through from like early season. Also, another thing I have is I have a mask and a hood of some sort that is mosquito impenetrable. And so it stinks, man, but when it's 95 to wear that thing, it's not fun. But like if you can keep the mosquitoes off you, man, it just helps you to hunt so much more still.
I can grow a pretty good beard, so that helps me with that, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't mess with that too
That's
much.
one thing I would say is I wear a one of those muffs or buffs or whatever they're called. I forget what they're called, but it's like fishing guys wear them where they go over your face. And I wear those during the cold because because it'll keep my ears warm. It like pushes my ears up against my head, and stuff. And so it literally, I can hunt in as cold as I've ever been in, and my ears have not gotten cold in one of those buffs. And I don't need a toboggan or beanie or whatever. And it helps me to hear better. I can hear way better than I can if I put a hood on or a beanie or whatever.
I do my best to not cover my ears no matter what.
Yeah.
Because I just that's a good point of like, if you're going to get one of those little polyester lightweight things and just suck your ears to the side of your head.
I can hear way better.
I'll tell you what else, a stay warm tip, pay attention to what hat you have on. Because I have been guilty a lot of times of wearing a mesh hat way too late in the season and just getting cold. And like, dude, if you'll wear a solid hat or put a toboggan on over your hat, like you will stay so much warmer.
Yeah. I go from early season though. I end up going into the late with like I usually have. I like coveralls a lot, but I would have a bib or a big jacket. And for me, I mean, like it sounds silly, but I may wear like total on top. I may have 7 layers in the late season. I'll have like
it sounds silly until you go up north and hunt when it's real cold.
Yeah, I mean, I'll put like a light merino on. I got a heavyweight merino, which I don't think Sika makes that anymore, but dadgummit, that's a good
nice piece, man.
Then I'll have like a down or like some kind of...
You got a scree down jacket that's real warm.
Yeah, I love that thing. I'll usually wear a down or two and then like a mid jacket, maybe a big jacket, and then coveralls, somewhere all layered together if it fits. And it gets kind of difficult to hunt out of sometimes when you're bow hunting. But
for me, I try to make sure and have that windproof layer of some sort on the outside because I feel like that helps a ton. Like if the wind's just not dragging the warmth off of you, because that's actually what wind does, right? It pulls the warm air that your body's trying to hold in off your body and then replaces it with cool air. So if you can have that windproof something, it doesn't matter what that is. You can go from a Carhartt jacket on, that's something that's windproof. On the outside, it's going to help you stay a lot warmer as opposed to just a bunch of fluffy.
That video that shows kind of what we did, at least with a couple years ago, some of this has changed, but it's called Our Deer Hunting Camo System. You can check it out in our gear playlist. Okay. What is the size... or what size is the minimum size of score of buck you would shoulder mount?
That's subjective.
It is.
Yeah. We've talked about this a lot. Yeah. Assuming we're talking about, whitetails, not what are those things called? Hunter killed
Coos
deer.
Okay.
Yeah, I might mount and because here you have 6 points and stuff like that. That it's just like, well, I would mount a 136 point for sure. But I don't know. That Pope and Young range is kind of where I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that's kind of me too. I just think whatever. It's what you like art wise or mount wise and deer wise versus what your budget is. I mean, if $600 ain't a big deal to you, then get you a shoulder mount.
Absolutely, that's the tough thing.
Yeah.
That's kind of the first thing I thought about. I was like, well, depends on how much money I have at the moment.
I love shoulder mounts. I just think I would rather pay $600 for a shoulder mount than any other piece of art I could put on a wall.
Especially NFT, right? Isn't that what it's called? No, NTF or something?
It is NFT.
NFT, yeah.
Non-fungible trade.
Yeah.
Something, yeah. Anyway, that's up to you, man. Just there's no right or wrong. Nobody, don't post a picture of your shoulder mount on the forums or on Facebook, because then you're going to probably have guys that rage you, but they're going to rage about everything. So
that's right.
Just be happy with what you got.
Except for the Element DIY group, no rages allowed.
I hadn't seen any rages on there.
That's right.
What game bag do you prefer for whitetail?
Black Ovis.
Black Ovis.
Yeah.
Is that black turkey egg or what is that?
Ovis is sheep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's right, Ovis. Yeah. What's the turkey?
It's I don't remember. Anyways, yeah, that's a website y'all can go check out. They got a bunch of hunting stuff, but they make their own line of game bags. You can use any of that stuff.
What conditions in Texas would call for a meat hauling bag?
The same type bags that we're talking about?
I think this is like something with a meat shelf or something, a pack, yeah.
Yeah. Steep ground or thick vegetation?
Or long distance.
Distance, yeah.
If you can, the thing is, some of these Texas properties don't let you quarter it up to get it out, which I think is the dumbest thing.
Yeah.
But if you can quarter it up.
I bet you hadn't checked the regs on that, have you? Most people, I don't think people think about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, it just depends on the ground. If the ground's muddy or if there's a bunch of fallen timber, or whatever, that could be tough. Carting a deer through vines could be tough. So, yeah, I think that's...
It's also loud, so if you intend on you or another buddy hunting in there, putting a deer on your pack is way quieter.
Yeah, and if you're with a buddy, you can get a deer out in one haul probably.
Easy.
So, especially in Texas.
Yeah.
What socks do you prefer for late season?
Midweight merino.
Yeah.
Depends on how far I got to walk. Y'all know, if you listen much, you know my sock changing regiment. I usually, if I have to walk far, I change my socks when I get to the tree stand if it's a really cold day, and it keeps me way warmer.
K.C.'s the sock man for sure. I'm just kind of a doofus. I'm the same way, like midweight merino probably. Merino pretty much full throughout the season.
Yeah. If you're going to go with a heavyweight wool sock, you almost need a specific pair of boots to go with that, because most of us don't have enough room in our standard boots to go with a heavyweight sock and be comfortable, because what people don't realize is that when you put a heavyweight sock and you jam your foot down into your boot and you don't really have enough room, that compresses the wool, which makes it less warm, but you're doing away with all the airspace within your boot, which makes it less warm too, and then you're constricting the blood flow to your feet because it's so tight, and that's why people get super cold with heavyweight socks on. That's why I go with a merino that's midweight, which means kind of not thin but not super thick, and change them and put dry ones on when I get there. And I've worn those rubber boots with those and been in some real cold situations, and your feet are always going to get somewhat cold.
My toes are cold right now. Thinking about it.
Yeah. But the idea is to just mitigate things as well as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Right.
So speaking of this, you already talked about kind of your regiment for keeping your feet not so sweaty. How do you stay cool and manage sweat?
Wear the least amount as possible and walk in the shade.
Walk in the shade, wear some synthetic that'll dry out really quickly. Like it makes sense. You think about it, it's like it would make sense to wear a merino early season because if you sweat, it can keep your odor down. But dude, those merinos, if you sweat in them, will be wet forever. 3 days from now.
Yeah.
So
another thing is only wear rubber boots when you really need to. Yeah. I think people got on the craze about rubber boots, and I wear them pretty often because they are kind of impenetrable, which is nice. Like walking through the brush is nice with rubber boots because your shins don't get all banged up. But they're a good way to get your legs and feet hot, which then in turn kind of regulates your whole body temperature. If one part of you is hot, all that blood is getting pumped through the rest of your body, and it's getting your whole body hot. So if you can wear, hikers or something like that when it's hot, it'd be better.
Speaking of boots, what's your best way for stalking or walking quietly to your stand? Wait, real quick. Back to the last question. I also take my hat off a lot when I'm walking. If I have an extra hand, that helps my head to blow some steam. But anyway, back to this. How do you what boot do you like for the quietest approach?
I don't mess with that too much.
Yeah.
The other day, Hunter and I took our boots off. The only reason I did it is because Hunter
made you.
Hunter was the hunter, and I was the camera guy. And he took his boots off. I was like, well, I can't be the camera guy that doesn't take my boots off. And then you know what I did? Stepped on a cactus. So that was fun.
Sold out.
The deer that we were stalking, Tyler had to nearly jump on his head to get him out of the bed. So we literally got down to our socks for no reason.
Hey, saw it on TV one time,
That's
man.
it, dude.
Got to do it like they do.
I know.
I think I'm the same way. Like, I just try to be quiet when I walk in whatever boot I'm in. Like, don't step on sticks, I mean, got to kind of up and down, see where you're going, see if there's deer ahead of you, but at the same time, don't step on a
slow is
cracker.
Quiet, pretty much, when it comes to that.
Exactly right. But I usually feel quieter in like a mid hiker or whatever, than I do in like a rubber boot.
I bet you I could wear these New Balance and stalk better in them than I could anything else.
Yeah.
So whatever that's worth.
Yeah. Okay, in late December and early January, what are deer and pigs feeding on in the morning?
Corn feeders.
That's right. Whatever corn feeder has not run out yet.
That's right.
After some dude smoked a giant off of it in November.
But outside of that, a lot of times in Texas, you get that wild rye that comes up. If you've had a little moisture, they eat on that stuff.
Privet berries,
and
honeysuckle.
The water oak and willow oak acorns will still be around. Sometimes even dropping.
The hogs hammer those late season.
Yeah, and they'll be a lot of times they're just piled up under the trees, and you just
eating dirt and stuff too.
That's right. They don't care. That's spoken from an East Texas perspective.
Yeah.
You head up north, I mean, winter wheat fields. That's where it's at. And there's still beans, so I'm assuming they mean south.
That's what I was thinking too. Beans and stuff like that too, maybe up north, right? Okay. Can you both demonstrate how you walk in and set up? Not very easily on the podcast.
Watch the 2021 season playlist. We try to do our best to kind of show some of that stuff when we self-film.
People tend to not watch it.
Yeah, well, it's pretty hard to document that. But pretty much, I think you can say this quickly because you kind of have a pretty good system for like how you walk in and then set up. So, like, what do you carry versus what's in your pack?
So we actually just did a video on KC setting up his saddle, so that can help y'all to understand what that looks like if you want. It's called Hang a Saddle Fast. Good, single song. Yeah, how to hang a saddle fast. Anyway, I typically put everything in my pack, which includes 500 camera batteries and all that good stuff. And I walk in with my bow and my sticks in my other hand, basically. Bow in one hand, sticks in the other usually. I'm thinking about moving to a bigger pack now, right now at least, kind of a bit later in the season already, even though it's kind of still hot. And putting my 2 sticks on one wing and 2 on the other on the backpack. But either way, I can do that. I can walk in very quietly with wind that is blowing away from where I expect deer to be, and also hopefully taking a route into my tree that lays no ground scent where a deer would hang up and not give me a shot or not have already presented me a shot. And then as far as like setting up, I'm a right-hander, so I try to set up so that I have right-handed shots. You don't want to be like our friend from South Dakota who likes to pull the bow straight to his sternum. Mm-hmm. You want to make sure that you've got shots for a right-hander to my 9 o'clock, right? And for a left-hander, probably to your 3 o'clock. Like that's the ideal shot, is you don't have to move and you shoot your deer at 9 or 3, depending on what hand you are. So that's kind of my thoughts. Everything else is dependent upon really the situation.
Yeah. Personally, I try to pick a tree that's not leaning too far into me.
Yeah, me too.
I don't want to be in a saddle with my platform on the tree and then actually have a tree like up in my face because it's leaning out at me. So that's the only thing I'd add.
Chad doesn't like this, but I may have been in the minority, but I like a tree that leans away better than I do forward, even out of a saddle.
But we are leaners, and other people are sitters, and I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. So they can just sit like one of those baby toys that spin around over their crib. They just sit like that when they've got a tree leaning to them. How are you concealing your climbing system for deer?
I just put it on the opposite side of the tree that I think deer are going to come from and just leave it at that.
Pretty much me too. Sometimes that doesn't work out. Sometimes I can't do that. Because I also, like if I'm close to bedding, I try to go up the side of the tree that's going to give me the least amount of scraping on branches going up and stuff. So, sometimes you just got to shoot the deer before it sees your stick. But I didn't do that in Iowa a couple of years ago, and I was real sad.
I also have swapped out some straps, and I like a gray strap the best. Instead of if you're using webbing, like a 1-inch black web or dark green web shows up pretty bad on a lot of trees.
How do you know it's time to buy a new bow? Do bows show any signs of stress? Because this is a KC question.
They do. And who knows about the newer bows, but a lot of times there's this thing called cam lean that you can't fix. And I don't know a ton about this.
Is this where Cam gets on Instagram and leans forward and starts running real fast?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or he's just cutting weight, so he's real lean,
Oh, yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah,
that's
but the cams are the wheels on your bow, the top and bottom. And sometimes they get this thing over time where they just kind of lean one direction or the other. But otherwise, maybe the lamination is starting to come off your limbs, or you have splintering in your limbs. Like that's an ASAP get a new bow type deal. But otherwise,
don't pull back again.
They'll shoot for a long time. There might be telltale signs of just a bow is impossible to tune. Maybe that's an issue. A lot of older bows are harder to tune anyways. A lot of newer bows are harder to tune too because they're just such sports cars that they're just it would be like me getting in a Lamborghini and trying to drive the thing. You just got to have a little training for it. But anyways, that's what I would say. If you have an older bow and it still shoots really good, it's never been dry fired, then there's no reason to get a new one unless you just want a new one or you're trying to get a little extra speed or silence or something.
Must have snacks and drinks for a road trip.
Kyle Bennett, I'm tired of you. I was thinking about that guy this morning.
Yeah.
I think we answered this sometime, but for me, trail mix and maybe some kombucha.
Kombucha, I wouldn't say it's a must-have. I would like to have it, but I can't always find it.
Yeah, exactly. If we're in Casey's country, they're always going to have Trilogy and Ginger Aid.
Yeah, what are they thinking?
I don't know. I like Ginger Aid all right. I would rather have original than
I
ginger.
I only like ginger in my stir fry.
Yeah.
So for me, probably Pop-Tarts and water. Do y'all
water for sure too.
Do y'all use DeerCast? Is it effective in East Texas?
I've never logged. Apparently, you get it free with OnX now if you have the Elite. So if you're an Elite member of OnX, then there's a bunch of stuff you can get free or discounts through, and DeerCast is one of them. It's a Drury thing. If you're not an Elite member of OnX, you should do that because if you plan on hunting more than one state, dude, it is the best. Let me tell you how many days I have spent in March just on the map looking at Maine. Just dreaming of hunting, Yeah. But Tyler and I do this all the time, and it's nice to just have all 50 states. But I would imagine that there's some validity to it. I mean, if they got
I've heard lots of success stories, even from people that have no, no reason to.
I heard Terry Drury last night talk about deer cast as the reason he killed a 170 yesterday, but, probably a little bit of.
Was it that 10 point? Because I thought that was like a 184.
I just guessed it. Yeah, the 10 point. I don't know.
Dang, you underguessed him, dude.
Yeah.
Dang, typical forum guy.
No, dude. I'm just trying to be conservative. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, okay, I got you.
I mean, let me tell you something. The difference in a 170 and a 184 is 14 inches of awesome. Is all it is. They're both 7%. They're both toads. So here's the thing that I think is weird. I think when people start talking about like these specific moon phases and stuff like that, it's like, maybe it's a thing, right? And you were talking about one while ago before we got on air, and I didn't think you were dumb for it, but I'm like, maybe.
I ain't dumb.
And even the barometer, man.
You think Hunter's dumb?
Sometimes.
Yeah, okay.
But not all the time. He's smart on some things. Like wind direction and temperature and weather predictions, those are what's important. And I think that the reason people pay attention to the barometer is because it is a indicator of other things that are going on. Because when a big front comes, usually that is a high pressure system, and it's not because the barometer, but it's because of what comes with that, and that's why
certain weather, certain temperatures,
exactly.
Yeah, certain things that get deer moving.
And the thing with DeerCast, I think I probably shouldn't speak too much about this. Maybe you have some thoughts. You might have looked at it more than me, but it's going to be just an algorithm of all of this stuff. Like if you want to just have a quick thought of like what you should do, it's going to say, "Hey, it's a good day for where you're at," and you don't have to do all the math and deciding if this is good. Also, if you have an opportunity to go hunt, go hunt.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I think about those prediction things.
That's the same way with me. I think that the app is probably pretty accurate overall, but I can tell you that there's a couple of factors such as human pressure, where the deer is living, how big is your property, is he daylight on your property, that you can't overcome with just the fact that an app's telling you it's a good day to
Where
hunt.
did Hot Doe take him yesterday?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
That's exactly right. It's just get out and hunt, man. And if, but what's exciting, I think this is what people get off on with the moon, with the barometric pressure sometimes, but with the moon especially and with this app is it's somebody like, if you don't have a chance to go, you're probably not looking at the app. So when you have a chance to go and you look at the app and it says great day to go, that's hype, dude.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like when you're like, oh, man, I love that red moon underfoot, 90 degrees Texas style, or whatever, which is a double moon in case you didn't know.
A double moon.
So
Luke Skywalker
that's what
over
Texas
here.
style is.
Yeah.
And when they see that and they know they're hunting this weekend, they're like, gosh, this is the hypest thing ever, dude.
Yeah.
So I think it's a hype thing more than anything. And not that it's bad or inaccurate necessarily, but
And dadgummit, dude, Mark and Terry kill some big deer.
Yeah.
So they aren't going to give you misinformation on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So how often do you cover scrapes?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Maybe you cover them up so that you only have one scrape in the area or something?
I doubt it. That's an interesting tactic, though. I think that person's asking, like, how much do we talk about it or something. But probably the real question is, like, what do you think about scrapes, Tyler?
I think they're awesome. I think they're one of the key tactics for me to know that a deer is in the area that is serious about being shot.
How many deer did you kill over scrapes last year, Tyler?
Killed one in Illinois. I killed one in Kansas. And I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that's a lot. That's a lot of deer in 1 year.
2 big
over
deer.
Scrapes.
Yeah. And both at very different times of the year. Mm-hmm. So if you find a fresh scrape, is a good reason to at least put a camera somewhere that can monitor it without spooking them. What do you think? Anything you got?
Love scrapes. It's my favorite deer sign to find.
Yeah, me too. I'm ready to find some soon. How close to a rub are you willing to set a trail camera?
Doesn't even factor into it.
As far as possible.
Yeah, I rubs. all they are like, you
I can't remember the last time I put a camera on a rub.
No, I think it would work,
Yeah.
especially some of the ones you see that are signpost rubs. But as far as like factoring in where I put the camera, it's not that much. I wouldn't put a camera covering up a rub. Speaking of covering things, I would not put it.
Yeah.
Because we did that actually in Kansas on accident one time, and our camera got raged.
It got flipped from picture mode to video
That's
mode.
how hard they were hitting. But that tree didn't have a rub on it when we put it there.
Yeah.
But they did shortly after. Yeah, rubs for me are strictly hype, pretty much.
Yeah.
And like knowing that there's a good deer in the area or something.
I guess if there's a certain density that, you come across, you can probably be like, man, this might be a place that a deer is bedding close to, or this is a deer, these deer stages here right before he goes out to this food, So it's one of those things where you could make assumptions based off of a lot of them. But like for us, we'll be walking through, say, East Texas on public land, and if you see a cedar tree, you can kind of bet there's going to be a rub on it. So you kind of look down, you see a rub on it, and you're like, oh, okay, there's one. And then another 100 yards, you'll see a cedar tree, and you'll be like, oh, there's one too. This doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, there's a rub line thing. I think it gets a little overhyped, but last year in particular, you think about some of the late season hunts, that there was a rub line in there that kind of showed you the buck movement, and it held true. Yeah. So, like, if you're in a situation where you see a line of rubs, say frequency of 50 yards apart, and they're all headed one direction, then I think there's something to it, and you could hang a camera there to understand the deer movement.
Yeah. Yep. When hanging cams, what's the main positioning? On trails, food sources, feed trees, ? The main position for us, I would rather not hang it high unless I feel like my camera's going to get stolen probably. I just like the field of view better from about 4 foot up. And I would hang it on a trail. I would hang it to where deer coming down the trail is intercepting about a 45-degree angle on that on that sensor. So like it would be pointing... If it's pointing straight forward at 45 degrees off of that straight point is where the trail, a deer would set the sensor off on the trail at maybe 40 feet or something like that, so that you've got a little bit of time for it to take the picture and get the deer. On a food source, pretty much put it perpendicular to a fence line a lot of times, just facing out into the food source. You could face it down one way or another. It'd probably be pretty effective too. And on a feed tree, I'm guessing that's like a oak tree that's dropping acorns, or a persimmon.
Apples, Pennsylvania.
Apples too, yeah.
Map Scout Challenge.
Plums.
You can go check out some sweet feed tree pictures from Pennsylvania this year.
We stuck up high, and because it was on public, and faced it down at like the food source, and we got a bunch of pictures of deer from over the top.
A bear raged it and knocked it down even further down, so straight down pictures. Yeah.
So that's one way to do it, or you could just face it out. But I would imagine, if it's just a feed tree that's out in the middle of a pasture or whatever, then you're going to have to put it on that tree or get you a stake or something. But I feel like either way, it's kind of conspicuous.
Yeah. So. One thing I would just add is that you need to understand the field of view of your camera. We run those Moultrie Deltas a lot, and I like them a lot. They take really good pictures, and for a cell cam, they are fairly inexpensive for what you're getting. I really have enjoyed them. However, the limiting factor is that they have a narrow field of view. So... it's not that it's bad, but you just need to consider that whenever you're pointing it at something. You can't point it, say you can, but I wouldn't. Say you're hanging it on a feed tree and you're pointing it at something 10 feet away, you're going to get some real tight shots. Yeah. You're going to want to hang that thing like 30 feet from what you're trying to get pictures of.
Yeah. And I think another thing, now that you mention it, to consider is the frequency with which you upload on a cell cam, and if you don't necessarily use a cell camera, but either way, also the frequency that the pictures take. So, for instance, on a trail, which was the first example, you would want, I think you want to put that on the lowest setting so that it can take the most amount of pictures, because what's going to happen, especially during the rut, is a doe's going to come by and set it off, and if you're not triggering again in 5, 10, 30 seconds, then you're going to miss the buck that's right behind her.
And that's where burst mode comes in handy too.
Yes, yeah, so burst mode. But then if you're on a persimmon tree or a big white oak that's dropping right now, and you're facing it, at the canopy of that tree, you don't want to do that. Have a picture every 5 seconds because you're going to eat your battery alive doing that. So probably just, think about that, and you'll have to test it some, but maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes or something like that, give you a few less pictures to have to go through. Good question. Bottomland or natural gear, KC?
Ooh, natural gear probably.
Yeah.
Bottomland's good, but natural gear is a little lighter.
Yeah, that's what I like too. I like lighter patterns overall usually, but in certain, out here in East Texas, Bottomland is
be pretty snazzy,
pretty good. So it just depends on where you're at. The lighter the pattern, usually the easier or the harder it is to see at distance. So Bottomland looks good when it's just you and me sitting here, but like if you're out on the plains in Bottomland and out on plains in natural gear at 200 yards,
yeah,
I would be like,
you look
whoa.
like a boulder.
You look like
there.
a Bigfoot for sure.
Yeah.
How important is the pattern? This guy says he only has old school mossy oak. You know how I know it's a guy? Because this is a hunting channel, and we literally, I found out that a lot of our we do have a few ladies that listen, but like a lot of our YouTube ladies are actually dudes on their wives' profiles.
That makes sense. Yeah. Makes better sense. I would say it doesn't matter a whole lot. The only thing I would be wary of is if it's old, sometimes that stuff starts to fade, and then it's not a good light; it's a bad light color.
Like a white.
Yeah, like a fuzzy looking white color. So I would just avoid that. But dude, you've killed some giants out of some, a gorilla suit that's real tree. What was that? No, that's not. It's before
Advantage.
Advantage with them big leaves on it. That stuff's cool.
It is, dude.
It looks good. So I don't think that, dude. This is a cliche, but people have been killing deer out of flannels for a long time.
Old Chuck.
You don't need no, first sick, whatever, KU, whatever it takes. You don't have to have that stuff.
Yeah. Where those brands excel is in the apparel, essentially, not the camo pattern necessarily, but it's like
technical gear.
Technical, yeah. Mm-hmm. It fits good. It's comfortable. It's warm or waterproof or whatever.
It's hard to look like a gorilla in Sitka. Like usually, it's pretty form fitting.
Yes, yeah. But if you don't care about how you look, then that is fine.
Yeah.
Because I don't really care either. So I just like for it to fit well and be comfortable. Best cold weather outer. Or it says outers, but I just give them your favorite one or two.
I don't know. Because I think it matters more. I would just say, because I like to layer, the best outer I have found is probably that Stratus jacket because it blocks wind really good. But otherwise, I don't know. I like my natural gear one I got too. It's for natural gear for the price does pretty good when it comes to cold weather.
Yeah, I like the Walls coverall that I
bet
have.
You do.
That is what I love.
I wish I could find some of those. I'd wear them too.
Well, I should do some searching.
I have.
Oh, have you?
I look on Facebook Marketplace all the time for some old school camo stuff because some of that stuff's good.
People ain't giving it up. Vane configuration.
4-fletch.
4-fletch. Heavy or light? I've heard arguments for both. I guess that's we already talked about that in the last Q&A.
The arrows? We already talked about it? Heavy.
Grain broadhead, that's 125 in case you didn't hear the last one. If you could only use one pair of boots all season, what are they?
Probably hikers.
Really?
If I had to do all season, yeah.
I'd probably go rubber.
I don't want to do a mile in Nebraska in rubber boots.
I don't either, but I don't want to do December through a swamp.
Here's my answer. Don't do that.
Yes.
Buy a cheap pair of rubber boots and have, if you only got $100 to spend, go buy you a $60 pair of hikers and a $40 pair of rubber boots.
Yeah. Good
and
call.
if you don't have $100 to spend on shoes,
probably shouldn't be hunting.
I'm sorry, dude. You got to work a little overtime this month.
Hunting's expensive.
It is.
What will pull East Texas deer to a feeder in October when acorns are hitting the ground? Spelled Akerns.
I like
spelled
this,
correctly.
I don't know. They're just going to have to be one of the food sources that they use. They might not be there all the time, but they'll be there.
Here's what I think, man. I don't want to offend you at all, but I think that a lot of people have the excuse that the acorns, this is a historical thing. What people like to talk about in October when they stop seeing deer on their feeders is the acorns are falling. And I think, man, in my experience, there ain't nothing pulls them like corn. So if they ain't coming to your feeder, it's because they have moved home ranges. It's hot. They don't want to move too far. And or you just are not where they live. Or
you bumped them up.
Or
because you've been hunting them too much.
Yeah, or you filling your feeder or whatever, you know. But like the deer just, if a deer is living on my property, as in bedding on my property, and I have corn out, they will be coming to my corn. And it doesn't matter how many oaks back there are falling. Or my persimmon trees. Dude, I've had deer go to the persimmon tree and feed for a couple minutes and then come right over to corn. But they're there because that's where they are. You know what I mean? So I think that the main thing when you feel like that deer are on the acorns and not on your feeder is more than anything. It's just that they live far from your feeder, you know, farther than they would feel comfortable with.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to offend you at all, but that's just my thoughts on it.
This year, you shouldn't have that problem because there's hardly any acorns.
That's what we've noticed. Best sticks you have used?
Best is tough. As far as lightweight,
this would be a climbing stick, I would assume.
Yeah.
Not a shooting stick or a stick that your camera guy may be throwing around in the tree.
Your muddies are pretty hard to beat, really. Those Muddy Pros.
I love them things.
I like those Hawk 3-steps. I know people, they get hated on some, but I haven't used them to a heavy extent.
I'd like to use them some this season.
Yeah.
We've used this year already. We've used the Muddies. We've used those Hawks. We've used the Carbon Timber Ninjas. We've used XOP single and XOP double step.
Is it XOPs if the weight is the problem?
Pretty heavy.
Otherwise, I love them.
Yeah.
But they're just very heavy. I wouldn't say so heavy. You know, they're not iron.
But you can just tell that they're a lot.
They're heavy.
I just love my Muddies. The only thing, there's two things. If my Muddies, they become clanky because they loosen really easily. If they could solve that, and then the nesting is not the best. It's really hard. I mean, I've gotten to where I can get them nested almost every time, but it takes a little work, especially in the dark right after you pull out of a stand in the evening. But I love them. I can go up a tree so quick with those Muddies, dude, because it's cam lock. So you just pull the string around, go through, and I know a quick little knot, and it's game over.
Yeah.
I mean, so I like them. I'd say, man, just there's groups on Facebook that dudes have a lot of experience with that, a lot more than we do. So as far as all that goes, you could probably find some information there, and just find you some sticks you can get to a tree with. And I mean, Hunter last year was hunting with something he built in the ag department in high school or something, I think. I mean, they were giants.
Just be tough and go up a tree.
That's right. And then, if you got money, man, just buy a few different pairs and sell them on Facebook after you figure out which ones you want. How many sticks are you carrying and why?
Depends on where we're at.
We got a lot more questions, so let's keep rolling.
So pretty much 4. Just that way, because it's just each one's a pound and a half or whatever. So
I carry 3 a lot, but it just depends on what trees I think I'm going into. Yeah. What makes a great release? Dependability.
Something you can depend on, and that it's consistent.
Yeah. Cobra's engineered with few moving parts. That's what Jake always talks about is we don't have hardly any moving parts in this thing, so there's not much to fail, So if it fails, then maybe it's user error. Who knows? I don't know a lot about releases. I just know that I've used a Cobra for a long time, and I have been able to depend on the 2 releases that are Cobras that I've had over the last 15 years. So that's a good question. Maybe we should have Jake on to answer that sometime. Can you make a video of the setup you use for camping in a truck? We could probably do that. I haven't ever slept in the back of my truck really too much. We did one time at Delano, but KC plans on doing that soon, so maybe he can come up with some good thoughts for you guys. Yep. How cold does it get in the back of your truck in the winter? Have you ever done much of that?
Not in the winter.
Okay,
no.
Me neither. How are you getting your kids into hunting?
Well, mine likes to throw out corn for the deer, but he's also a year and a half. So Yeah.
Mine doesn't like guns, so I don't blame him. And they're loud and they kick you pretty hard. So we're working through that. Have you ever tried zinger fletches?
Mm-mm. I'm not technical enough to just try out all types of veins.
In your opinion, are the $100 broadheads like Iron Will and solids really worth the extra coin?
I'm just gonna say controversial things here. Solids not, because they are not owned by the original company anymore. And what happens is whenever conglomerates buy things, they kind of cheapen them. Iron Wheels, I haven't shot enough to know. I would say that a premium broadhead is nice.
Yeah.
But you can kill a lot of deer with some cheapos.
Do y'all soundproof your stealth with stealth strips or anything else?
Only thing I do is I put some tape or paracord on my saddle platform because there's a point of contact with two pieces of metal when they fold up, but that's it.
I need to do that, but I don't, and instead I'm just really careful. But using your setup a few times can get you really familiar with it, and then you can know what has a propensity to ding. You ever have a problem with your grunt call freezing up when it's bitter out? I don't think I have either.
That means you've been blowing on it too much.
That's exactly what I was just about to say. It's like when you're duck calling, that's the only reason that happens is because you've been spitting in it. But maybe not. Maybe not. I don't live in Minnesota or anything, so I haven't had that problem. Sorry, dude. What do you feel, or when do you feel most confident rattling?
When the deer are hype. Like,
So
I want to see
prime rut.
Yeah, I want to see action,
Yeah.
and even late rut. Because I feel like that bucks are it's kind of like, I don't live this way, but I know this is the thing that happens. Around 10 p.m. at the social establishments, everybody's pretty chill, but around 1:55, everybody's like hustling, if you know what I'm saying. And I think deer are that way too. And I think that, around November 18th through the 25th, they're like, okay, where's she at?
Yeah. I'll answer this. What packs are y'all running? We're running the tool belt, and we may be changing that up some. Do you go in on a hunt with a meat hauling pack or after a kill?
After.
That's what I usually
deer.
do.
For deer, yeah, after.
Yeah. How do you pack your saddle setup?
I have been wearing my saddle when it's less than a quarter mile. I've been packing it when it's more than a quarter mile. And I have been putting my platform high on my pack so I could get to it with one arm whenever I'm in the tree.
Yep, strapping it in on the back. I strap my saddle actually on top of the platform too. Do you prefer ginger lemon or pomegranate health aid booch? This is a Dud the Stud question.
I haven't tried pomegranate health aid. My favorite right now is that Pink Lady apple.
It's good.
Yeah.
Pomegranate, I would definitely prefer, even though I haven't had the ginger lemon, because I just know I don't like the ginger drinks, really. Late season Illinois layers for a Southern man, as much as you have. I'd like to know what K.C. thought of natural gear. What you used to think. That's what
used to
past tense, I think.
That's what he said.
It says thought.
Oh, yeah. I like the pattern on natural gear. I think it's one of the best camo patterns out there. I don't like the natural gear 2, which is the one with the green and stuff in it. And don't use that a lot. The original natural gear is hard to beat. The stuff is definitely made overseas, cheaper stuff, and it's heavier weight. But it'll keep you warm. It's actually really quiet.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's fleece, and it's inexpensive.
What time of year were y'all in South Dakota, and what were the temps heading there for rifle this fall? We were there basically September 30th through October 8th. And the temps were on the warm side, I feel like, maybe, but it was like probably 80 is the highest and maybe a little bit more. And at night, we had like a couple of nights that were in the low to mid 40s. Overall, though, it was warmer than that at night because we had a bunch of humidity for some reason. I guess we had that storm system. But last year, it was into the lower 30s when we were up there. So that gives you an idea. I think it's going to start getting pretty cold as cold fronts come in, though. So I would wear a lot if you're going to be up there in rifle. Do you pack your layers in or wear them?
Pack.
for sure, as many as I can. I'll tell you this, even in cold weather, the worst part is of filming your buddy is that you may be sitting there at the truck with a T-shirt on while he's getting all his junk ready and freezing yourself, freezing your booty off. But like, really like going in the lightest layer you have, even when it's really cold, usually is the way to go. I would say. You feel pretty good about that?
Absolutely.
Do you wear anything to break up your outline early season, such as a jihili?
No.
Me neither.
Just don't get seen.
Don't get seen. The movement is the key. If you listen to one of our episodes we did a long time ago about the eye of the deer, that
was a good one.
Deer sight.
Yeah.
He talks about how they're designed to see movement. What's your preferred footwear in a saddle?
A stiff-soled boot.
Yep. That's not always what I wear, but that's what it would be the best. Recommendations for rubber boots when walking several miles in mountainous terrain.
Don't do that. I don't know, man. Sorry. I don't mean
those lacrosse are
they're comfortable.
I mean, I've never gotten gotten a blister from lacrosse boots.
I don't mean to come off like snide or anything when I answer some of the stuff, but some of it is just like, man, I wouldn't do that. I just wouldn't put myself in that situation. But yeah, if
you have to walk through a creek or a river at the very beginning or something, I can understand why. But maybe if it's the very beginning, just take some boots with you.
Yeah, drop those and put on regular boots.
Yep. That way, when you come back, somebody will have stolen them. Because you ain't alone on these public lands. Eric found that out this morning.
That's right.
He's hunting 10 yards from it. What gram boot do you wear? Instagram.
I wear zeros until it's below 32, and then I switch to 800s.
Yeah, I think I have 400s. I think. I do have some thousands, too. What type of release do you shoot? We already talked about this.
I shoot a hook style. You shoot a dual caliper.
Dual caliper. How do you keep your electronics charged while on the road?
Lots of truck chargers.
Yeah.
And we have those Anchor 20,000 millihertz or whatever they are, portable battery packs.
Yep. That's the way we do it. Last question. Bite the bullet and buy a new camper top, or is it easy to find a used one? I drive a Tundra.
Honestly, I think there are some Tundra ones you could find on Facebook Marketplace. But I'm not going to tell you if we've done this or not. But I think you could. It'd probably come out easier to buy a new one.
Yeah.
It'd take you a while to find a used one.
Yeah, I think so too. Just depends on your income.
Yeah.
So that kind of wraps up our Q&A for so far. We may do one later in November or something like that. But right now you guys have gotten some questions in. They're good. If you want to continue sending us some stuff and we get a bunch of them, we may sprinkle like 5 or 10 quick blast questions into a podcast somewhere. But we've got, like I said, a lot of rut stuff coming up that's hopefully going to help everybody learn from each other. I'm excited. I've learned from these guys that we've interviewed already, and I'm ready to put some of those actions into place as far as decoying and getting on the ground and some of this cool stuff, man. That's going to be really awesome in early November. Don't forget that we have a lot of stuff coming up on YouTube right now. We've got the whole South Dakota series is releasing $3 die in it. So I know not every video has a dead buck in it, but just, be patient. There's some pretty cool encounters that we've got coming up, close calls. Really had a blast out there and really just, I know we were all exhausted, but we put in hard work and it paid off, man. And we got things done out there that we went to do. And I was pumped about it.
We saw what happened.
We saw what happened. That's right. So, we've got that stuff coming up. And then from here, man, it's just some Texas Public stuff. We actually got some cool footage from Texas Public the other day. So we're working on that kind of stuff. Anyway, guys, make sure you check out YouTube. Subscribe there. Subscribe here on the podcast as well. And remember, this is your element.
Live in it.